Conversations with Azu Ishekwele.
29 members of Nigeria's National Assembly have passed away between 2015 and July 2024, according to official statistics at our disposal. 5 of them have passed on under the present dispensation. In October 2023, a member of the House of Representatives from Sokoto passed away, and another member of the House of Representatives died in May 2024. 2 others died in July, that is just last month, and a member of the Senate, Senator Ifeanyi Uba, representing Anambra, passed away just a few days before the end of July. And this forms the basis of our conversation on Conversation with Adu, and today our topic is the price we pay when legislators die. Azu, the columnist, is here with me as usual to answer some questions on why this topic has interested him. You're welcome to Conversation, Azu.
Thank you for having me once again, Julius.
The price we pay. And in your article, I saw a staggering figure, 300 and something billion naira for the conduct of by-elections to fill positions where members have died. What is the way out of this kind of avoidable cost, should I say?
Yes, thank you very much. Just a few corrections. I think the number from 2015 to date is 39. I think it's about 39 actually, not 29 as you said. There are some numbers that we were able to find or curate outside and not contained in the official figure. So I think it's about 39, the number of lawmakers who died in office, not those who died before they were sworn in.
Or those who died after they were no longer in the house.
Yes. And so that's the first point. Now, I think the second point also has to do with what you said about what there were 2 questions you asked. The second point had to do with
the staggering cost of conducting
conduct election. That's the second point. Now that also is I need to sort of correct that. The 335 billion that was appropriated for elections in 2023 was not for by-elections alone. Okay. The 325 or 35 billion was for the general election. So then, of course, there was a supplementary appropriation of about 18. But the way it works is that so the general elections, and then so that total sum, the 33, the over 300 billion plus the 18 that was the supplemental approval. Were for the general elections and for the by-elections, between 2023 and the next appropriation year. So I just thought I should mention that. But then the question about how do we manage or deal with that, I think the next question you asked. I also mentioned a few examples in my article about how I think we may be able to manage these costs. There are examples elsewhere about how you can replace members who either die in office or those who have to be replaced as a result of increasing incidents of court ordered re-elections, or those who after election then go on to serve in other political offices outside parliament. So there are examples elsewhere, but I think the challenge that we're facing currently in Nigeria is that it's a constitutional issue. So it's not something you can deal with on discretionary basis. You have to go, because the Constitution provides that if a member of parliament, either federal or state parliament, dies, then you have to conduct by-elections to replace them. You cannot act out of discretion outside the provisions of the law.
Your article also cites the fact that most of those who have died under the current dispensation are 3 members of the House of Representatives and the senator who died are under the age of 55.
That's correct.
That's relatively young. And what do you think we could do in the circumstance?
Well, I agree with you. I'm sure that a few people, some of the feedback I've received since that article was published also was by those who said, well, that age, that unfortunate age that these legislators passed while they were in office is also a reflection of the life expectancy of the larger population. I think if you go by life expectancy figures, the average Nigerian is not supposed to live beyond 52 years. And if the legislators are part of that population, then it follows that you might assume that those of them who have lived up to 52 and who sadly passed, that's relatively young age by most modern reckoning, that they have fulfilled the life expectancy. But that, I think it's deeper than that, if you ask me. I think why, because in the UK, for example, when I looked at the sample that suggested that, in fact, the life expectancy of members of the House of Commons was about 20%, was far better than those of the larger population over a period that was. So but my point is that it does not necessarily follow, and we also know that increasingly, because of the benefits and advantage of technology, of science, of medicine, of information that people have, and greater awareness about longevity and well-being, people today live longer, healthier lives than used to be the case. So, and you would also almost naturally expect that people who are in parliament, who earn with the sort of money that we hear that they earn, would be able to look after themselves better and therefore live longer, healthier lives than the general population. So that is where the challenge actually presents itself. As I also suggested in the article, I think one of the ways to one fundamental way to deal with that, if you don't know cause of death as a result of cultural taboo, if in this country, if you go to a place where people have just passed on, whether they are members of the legislature or they are just ordinary people, you don't want to ask too much about what caused the person's death. You just want to go and commiserate with them and then leave it at that. By the time you begin to ask questions about, so what happened? Was the person sick? What kind of sickness? Then they begin to look at you. Were you responsible for his death? You say the man is dead. You are asking, that's. But in other parts of the world where people are more painstaking, not just because they are happy about such sad news, but because they want to see how potentially such incidents can be avoided, can be prevented or curtailed. People ask, they find out, and lessons are learned. And if they die, if they are pre-existing condition, then people who are alive will then know how to take care of it. Or if it was something that people couldn't fully explain, then there's a post-mortem. But we know, for example, that those of the Muslim faith the religion will not allow any post-mortem. Once the person dies, within 24 hours, the religion stipulates that person should be dead. There's no room or allowance or discussion about any post-mortem. So that again, I think is something we need to look at. And so my suggestion, obviously, is that journalists and other interested, because of the cost of replacement. You see, the cost of replacing 3 members of the Senate in a state is equivalent of the cost of conducting a governorship election in that state. So it's that huge. It's something. So my suggestion is something we need to pay some attention to, so that we find other methods perhaps after a constitutional amendment, to find easier, cheaper ways. But also important for disclosure, for greater disclosure about cause of death. I know stigma is also a problem, especially depending on what caused death in a number of cases.
That's the point. The next point where I was going. How do we address this issue of stigma? If journalists must report the cause of death, it has to be disclosed by family or by medical authority. If they go out of their way to get this information and put it out in the public domain, do you not think they endanger themselves?
Well, I don't think in South Africa, which is also to a large extent, you can't say conservative society, and we share a lot in common with, you know. I think in the particular period which I mentioned in my article, about about 100, no, about 103 members of parliament were replaced, and I think in that time when that replacement happened, 18 died while they were while the parliament was in session. 14 of them died as a result of largely concentrated HIV/AIDS, and which used to be a huge source of social stigma in the past. But I think that somehow that society has found a way of challenging, and AIDS is not a death, it's not sort of death.
It's no more the kind of stigma
Yes,
it used to
that
be.
it used to carry, that kind of death when you see somebody has AIDS. And again, it does not necessarily mean that somebody who contracts AIDS may have contracted it through some sort of illegal or some sort of sex, some sort of, it can also be people have also, it can also be by,
Receiving treatment,
by receiving
or
treatment.
manicure, or
So there are so
haircut.
many, so do you understand? So, and again, it's not a death sentence. So I think that the greater awareness of that has also helped people to be able to come forward to deal with that. So I think that that's also where civil society and interest groups need to be on the front foot to let people know that the reason why it's important to disclose is not necessarily that it's going to it will not raise the dead. Of course, we know that, but perhaps it might help those who are still alive to learn some lessons and be able to adjust accordingly. Hopefully, improve our statistics and database and help us live full along that.
Yeah, the price we pay for elections. I don't understand why INEC has to conduct, also elections for state constituencies when there are state electoral commissions.
Well, that's what the Constitution provides for now. And as I also said in my article, our Independent National Electoral Commission is one of the most overworked, underappreciated, and undervalued institutions. Because in other countries, for example, in a place like the US, the man in charge of conducting it, because the states and the counties, and they do most of those things themselves. And in some other jurisdictions, including South Africa, Germany, for example, what you just need to do is just need to go back to the list and see who's the second in line. Or the party can also decide to find a replacement. In some jurisdictions, in fact, if the parliamentarian died very close to the end of it, there's no replacement till the next cycle of election because of the cost. So I think obviously it's something we do need to pay attention to. How we can also make our election management body more efficient by devolving taking off some of the responsibilities that is totally unnecessary. That it obviously has to show that as a result of constitutional provisions.
Now, if the parties have to, find the candidates to be on standby or the next person in rank, as I read your article, this thought it also occurred to me, given the kind of society in which we are, is this not going to be another source of trouble, of like the discontent you referred to, who think that people may have died because of the anger of the
yes, people say, why are you writing about people who are dead? God don't catch them. What is the big deal about? Well, but I don't think so. I mean, death is a very serious matter, and I think it's one that our hearts should go out to the families of those, whatever the circumstance of their deaths, it is not for us to judge. But your question about what your question
about? My question is, if the states, if the parties have to replace.
Yes, your question about what the parties should do and whether that will not be abused. You see, we cannot keep ourselves hostage to the fear of the unknown all the time. If this happens, there will always be consequences for actions or inaction. But the important thing is for us to be sure that we are doing the right thing. I mean, in every the states, the parties hold primaries. They hold primaries and congresses and all of that. And in cases we find that there's somebody who comes first. There are people who are second or third or fourth. They can easily be, if there's a constitutional amendment, these people can easily be replacements for persons who unfortunately passed.
That's practically what the All Progressive Congress did in Kogi State.
Exactly.
Because Falike was the running mate.
Exactly. You know. So, and I think INEC was front and center and pushing that look, this was just going to be the easiest way to solve this economic. You know. So, but that cannot happen now because there are constitutional provisions making that you can't do that. You can't without actually conducting dialogue.
I think you would be the right place to round up this show. For more on this, visit azuishekwene.com, where you'll find columns, books, papers, seminar papers presented, videos for deeper content on conversation, the diary we keep on national issues every week. Thank you for coming on the show, Azu.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Bye for now.
Conversations with Azu Ishekwene.